The most terrifying part of my journey wasn't the transition itself. It was facing the world while I was still in the middle of it. These powerful words came from my guest today, Emily Van Putten. Emily is a cybersecurity expert and a DEI advocate, and she's redefining what leadership and inclusion looks like in tech. And there is something that you might not realize, and Emily shared with me in our episode today. She shared that most cybersecurity solutions today are designed by teams lacking diverse perspectives, and that can lead to serious vulnerabilities. Hi, everyone. My name is Limor Bergman Gross, and welcome to another episode of From a Woman to a Leader. This podcast is dedicated to discussing women's unique challenges in the tech industry. And I'm your host, Limor. And I have an experience of over 20 years in the tech industry. I worked in software engineering, both as an engineer and later on as a manager, director of engineering. And I know how it's like to be a woman in tech. And today I'm dedicating my career to supporting other women in tech, empowering them and helping them grow and reach executive roles. So this podcast is dedicated for you, all the women out there that want to thrive and succeed in tech. As I share today, I have a very special guest, and I speak with Emily, and she shares her incredible journey from starting in IT without any formal background to how she became a leader in cybersecurity. And not only that, along the way, she embraced her authentic self as a transgender woman. And that reshaped not just her life, but her approach to leadership. So you'll learn today how to break into tech without any prior experience, how to create workplaces where everyone thrives, and why diversity is not just a buzzword. It's essential for success. So if you're ready for some practical tips, powerful inspiration, and a whole new perspective, keep listening. So are you ready? Let's dive right in. Hi, Emily. How are you today?
Hello, Limor. I'm doing great today. It's a great day with the sun is shining, so I'm happy to be on the call.
Perfect. Sun is shining here as well, and I'm so happy to have you here. And maybe we'll dive first into your professional kind of focus, which is cybersecurity. And can you share a little bit how you got there? How did you get to IT in the first place, and how did you decide to transition into cybersecurity?
That's an interesting one because my journey in IT started already 18 years ago when the field was quite different from what it is today. I entered the industry with a curious mind and desire to solve problems, starting in a support role on a help desk. Just this very junior role with infrastructure and troubleshooting and managing technical issues. And early on, I had the chance to learn how diverse the IT field is and how technology has the potential to impact business outcomes and human lives. So
That's incredible.
this is where I started, and as I advanced, I took on consultancy roles, which allowed me to move beyond immediate problem solving and look at technology, strategic roles in organization. And over the time, I worked with various clients, helping to understand their needs, helping them implement solutions, and eventually, what sparked my interest in cybersecurity was that that came basically naturally as I began to see the increasing importance of data protection and privacy as many organizations digitized their operations. I noticed that security was often viewed as a secondary concern, just basically a desk to get your stamp of your solution being approved. And over time, this transition to be more secure by design integration within a solution. So that's really changed over the last 2 decades when I was in this field. Yet, yeah, but the people and the process that rely on the data every day, this is an particular field that has growth enormously, mostly because of the digitization of the solutions. Today, every company is basically an IT company, even banks, and wow, most people don't think about that.
For sure. And so you started from you said you started from the bottom, and then
Yeah.
along the way you found that this field very interests you, and you also found that there is a lot of need, right, for
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. There's a lot of need and there's a lot of change in this world in, yeah, the last couple of
Yeah,
years. Yeah, it's really important to have security not bolted on, as in the past, but throughout all the solutions and yeah, the things we're using in our daily lives.
for sure. And I guess I'm intrigued of how did you make that transition, because I know that a lot of people, and women especially, even if they figure out they want something, let's say, you are doing something, and then
Yeah,
you figure out, oh, actually I'm interested into switching to something else, or
yeah,
upskilling myself, or going to a different role that I don't have experience.
yeah.
How do you make that transition happen, or how did you make that happen for you, so maybe others can learn?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because some of these changes just happen gradually. You're not just doing it on purpose, but at a moment you notice that you are in something else and that you basically decided in the past you would be working in. And what I have various discussions with all kinds of people, mostly women, about making a step into IT or specific expertise within IT, and they're in many cases they're intimidated by the technical point of view of many of them, of those expertises. And then I get this conversation about it's IT these days is much more than just those technical aspects. You have a lot of roles that are not mainly technical. So before starting a role, well, it doesn't matter if it's a junior role or a senior role. Have a look at yourself. What are your competencies? What are the things you like and you don't dislike? What are you good at? And if you have a good understanding of who you are and what you like, you have a better understanding of the potential roles that might be aligned to your, yeah, character, basically. So I think that is a good moment before diving into IT to have this introspection of yourself so that you can follow the journey within and towards IT, um, for yourself. And I know there are a lot of roles. Get a mentor, someone who is in the field already, and get this conversation with those people about what the opportunities are, how does the role look like, and give yourself this mirror. Is this what I want for the future of my career, or for the short term, at least?
Yeah, that those are very great insights, Emily. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that sometimes it's a chicken and egg problem, and I
Absolutely.
wonder how it works for you. So you are kind of, you understand you want something, you have conversations, but you don't have the experience, right? Okay, you're interested in a field,
Yeah.
maybe you have some skills related, but you have never done that.
Yeah.
How do you kind of advocate for yourself or sell yourself for a role that they'll have to take a chance on you because you've never done that before?
Yeah, I think it's the solution or the approach is basically twofold. On the one hand, as I said already, get this conversation with people within the sector. Make sure you have a, a basic package of the competencies and the skills needed to be on a role within this field. And on the other side, have a look at all the possibilities this sector offers to people, and dive into the topics that might be of interest for you. And these days there are a lot of programs, at least for me in the Netherlands. I'm living in the Netherlands, and there are a lot of programs for junior people, especially aimed at women and other minority groups, because there's a real shortage within IT. And we need all those hands of all the people, and especially of these minority groups that are not in IT yet. Um, we need all those diverse perspectives, especially in cybersecurity. We want to protect solutions that are being used by all people, but just most of the people working in the sector are men, and that is just one, yeah, a shortage in the approach and the perspective that also has some shortcomings in the end in the solutions we offer with regards to cybersecurity and other technology.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Emily. I mean, there is a shortage. We need diversity. We need different perspectives, and you said there are a lot of trainings and programs. So seek a program where you live, and sometimes some of them are virtual, so you can do it from whatever you want
Absolutely.
and upskill yourself. Perfect. And I want to kind of it's transition to something to transition, but a different transition. So you were a man, and now
Yeah.
you kind of um, see yourself as a woman, identify yourself as a woman, and along the way, when you're already in cybersecurity, you decided to transition your gender. So can you
Yeah.
share our listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is really a big topic, but realizing I want to transition for me was both empowering but also daunting. It was a single sudden, well, it wasn't a single sudden moment for me, but rather a gradual realization that developed over years. I spent long navigating complex emotions, because it's really a lot of emotions come into play in it when you're about to start a gender transition. I was feeling like something was missing, like I wasn't fully myself. So eventually, the weight of those feelings became undeniable for me, and I reached a point where I could no longer ignore the truth of who I was. So I knew I had to honor my authentic self, and that is not easy. It's easy said, but to be your fully self in this world with all those norms is really hard and challenge. And even though the path ahead was uncertain and intimidating for me, the decision to transition wasn't easy. It meant stepping into a uncharted territory for me in my personal life, and especially in my career, because IT is really a masculine world. And I think this decision transformed my career in ways I couldn't have anticipated before. Suddenly, being true to myself became a priority,
Mm-hmm.
and it changed the way I saw my work and the world around me. It felt a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. And I can be talking about this topic for quite long, so interrupt me when when
I would be curious to hear, Emily. I mean, how it changed. I mean, if you can share like one thing maybe that you felt like it changed for you, not just the gender, but how it changed your approach.
yeah, it changed my approach because, in the sense of that in the past I was really results driven. It was, I would say, more about ego, get those results, get those promotions. And at some point, I noticed we're living in a technical world. I'm in a technical role, but it's also more on about people, getting them together, lead based on empathy, and that is really hard. And when I also always say to people, when you're good with technology, at some point you're promoting, and it happens again some moment. But in the end, you are getting a role when you have people within a team. You have responsibilities to to hit certain targets, but you're not educated to lead those teams. And it's really important to acknowledge this fact, and in most cases, what I see around me, a shortcoming, because we're not educated to lead people, but we give them the responsibility to do so. So for myself, I saw this as a big learning path I embraced, and yeah, it's also related to my transition to more focus on people being more vulnerable, because it's sometimes really hard to be open in the workplace about your personal life, the things you're struggling with, and you always have this feeling that it might have a negative impact on my career, especially when I had this feeling about getting the results done. Uh, um, and then at some moment you have to be open, or have to be open be, to reach a certain state in which I can move on in my personal life and also in my career. I need to take the people around me with me. So being open was necessary for me in the end, while still really hard, because yeah, being afraid of the what people might say and what they think. But in the end, that opened conversations with people around me, because I was being vulnerable. They felt the space to being vulnerable as well. So that was a really an different outcoming than I anticipated before.
Yeah, and kind of, I cannot even imagine what you went through. I mean, because this is such a big change.
Absolutely, it's so it's about so much. It's not just uh, dr- take on the dress and then you're done. It's about mental support, about permanent hair removal. I've got over 50 sessions already, and it's really painful, I can say. Speech therapy. And for the listeners, you can hear my low, manly voice still, and that is really an obstacle for me, especially on the phone. So I'm with the speech therapist working to get the pitch of my voice increased, to talk differently, and it's like learning to walk again. And that is quite difficult.
I'm sure it is. I mean, as I said, I mean, I cannot even imagine, but I'm sure it is very difficult. And also, as you mentioned, like you become vulnerable even if you don't want to, because you're going through such a dramatic change, and you cannot really hide it, right? I mean,
You
people see that you're going through a transition, so you become vulnerable whether you whether you like it or not.
trying, because at the moment when you start to transition, you're the farthest away of the your end goal, and it's the most visible moment for the people around you to see this, as you mentioned. Um, while at that moment, it's the most scary, because you're just starting. I was not used to getting all those views from the people on work or on the street. You see yeah, their opinions in their eyes. Yeah. In most cases, they don't tell them, but you see those eyes passing by, and it's it's really really hard. And in the end, you get used to all those opinions and people watching you. And these days, I'm kind of comfortable. Must say, 2 years ago, I wasn't on this call. It was so scary, I think.
Yeah, and I want to thank you so much, Emily, for talking with me and sharing your story, because I think it gives inspiration for others who are going through either, it doesn't have to be transition of their gender, but anything that is scary, and that you get so much judgment from around you, and you give inspiration for others to be true to yourself and just face those things and grow stronger. And I hear from you also that it helped you realize how important it is to see people as people and not just, okay, we are here to do some kind of job and achieve results and all that.
Much
But
more. And that's what I like so much about the younger generation, because they have a different view about what is working. And it's just a part of their lives, instead of the older generation where work is their lives basically in many cases, and they also have some private stuff around this work. And I really like this approach, but it's also challenging for employers how to deal with those younger generation that are not that focused on work as the older ones.
you raise a very important point. I mean, and I think that companies and employers that will not adjust themselves to the younger generation will have difficulty retaining
Yes,
them. And
in the long term, I'm sure they will have difficulties. Yeah.
so, any tips from you based on your experience, how to create a culture that is open and inclusive and supporting not just the younger generation, but for everyone to feel comfortable and included and
Yeah,
happy?
I think that it starts sometimes with just these small acts of kindness, and lead with passion and openness, and give this lead by example, as we always say. I think it's really helpful, because when the leaders in all those organizations and in the world show how they can be authentic or vulnerable, have this conversation, and are not only focused on getting those results, I think this is a great starting point, and serves as a role model for other people that are having more difficulties making the steps on their own, because they really, in many cases, they feel, yeah, intimidated by, yeah, they cannot make this step on their own, starting it.
Yeah, and
They must do it together. So
and you mentioned like leading by examples, and when you are vulnerable, other people feel more comfortable to
absolutely.
being vulnerable as well.
Yeah, and sometimes you feel this. I always call those challenges that are in front of us mountains. They look enormous, but once you decide to start climbing this mountain and you're at the top of this mountain, you look back and you notice, oh, this mountain was not that high or steep or whatever. It serves as an how must I say it? The next mountain is smaller because of that. It's easier to challenge all those obstacles. But at some moment, you need to decide to choose for yourself and embrace who you are, even if it's just a small, tiny thing in your life in comparison to its gender transition. I think everyone has some things in their lives, in their personal lives, that they don't share with others because of fear.
Yeah, and I want to ask you. I mean, what can leaders do? If you have a tip, one tip or two, to really building and sustaining an inclusive culture. Because this is something that everyone talks about, but we all know that it's not so easy to implement.
No,
We are programmed with a lot of judgment, each one of us, even
absolutely.
if we want to, uh, if we don't want to admit it. We all have judgment. And as you said, like people even were judging you just by looking at you, not even saying anything.
No,
This is another thing, right? That unspoken communication
absolutely.
is very, very meaningful. more than we tend to think. So, if I'm a leader, what can I do?
I think for me, leadership is the backbone of an inclusive culture. Leaders set the tone and model the behaviors that shape the company culture in the end. And for leaders to support their teams effectively, I think they need to foster trust and openness, acknowledging their own learning journeys regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. And leaders can encourage team members to speak up, provide them training, and make it clear that inclusion is everyone's responsibility. And I think when leaders show that they are committed to learning and growing in this area themselves, it empowers their team basically to do the same.
Wonderful. I love that. I mean, I think that you sum it very well. Like it's everyone's job, not just the leaders, but they need to lead by examples and show they're actually
We need
implementing.
those leaders just to show us the way. Not that they're better or worse than the other people, but they are when you have all those the stacks of domino stones, and so you need to push these first dice in order to get the rest starting. And I think the leaders serve as the starter point for these cultural changes.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, you cannot expect others things you don't expect yourself, right? I mean, if you as a leader don't treat people fairly, or you're really judging people, even if you don't mean to. But
Absolutely.
then you say, oh, we want to have an inclusive culture, and you start, giving feedback to others who are not, you know, um, being inclusive, then they will think to themselves, okay, how can I be inclusive if my manager or my leader is not?
And educate yourself. You cannot do something when you're not familiar with the topic. So if you are a leader and want to do something with inclusiveness, which I hope, of course, educate yourself on this topic so that you have a good starter point.
For sure. Any resources you want to share, by the way? Do you have any specific
There's so
things?
so so many resources. I try to write articles related to this topic on my LinkedIn and personal websites frequently, but there are so many resources, and I think it really depends on your
Okay.
organization. And a good starter point for educating is just listen to people. Uh, really listen without opinion. Just listen to the people in your team. Get this conversation and understand their perspectives better. I think that's really a good starter point in terms
Oh,
of education without needing any resources.
for sure. And I'll make sure to share your website and your LinkedIn profile with our listeners. And um, definitely, I mean, I think you mentioned listening, and listening is a skill that we all need. We all need, and unfortunately, not many people really listen. They
No,
hear, but they don't
right,
listen.
absolutely. That's what it is. And we always say, most people say I can listen, but are you able to listen without bias, judgment? Just listen, and that's really hard.
It is. It is. And I would even say that it's not just the judgment and the bias, it's also about our ego and our thoughts. So, a lot of times, what happens when you talk with people, and it happens to me as well, you want to listen to them, but you have the wheel spinning in your head of what I want to say next.
Yes,
What are
absolutely.
and I want to express myself, and I don't listen to the other person.
No, you're just in this conversation to get your results out of the conversation instead of having an honest conversation without determined end results.
Yeah. Emily, I want to make sure that we covered everything you want to cover. So, Is there anything that you want to share with our listeners that I haven't asked you?
Um, no, I think one of the things I like most, we haven't touched about one of the initiatives I'm part of. That is, it's a non-profit organization in the Netherlands. It's called Dutch Women in Tech.
Okay,
And
yeah, let's do it.
we're basically an organization to get all those women across different employers connected, because we see frequently that women are at some organizations are just the only women in the room, and therefore women are leaving the tech industry early in their careers. And we wanted to have an initiative to connect all those women outside of their organizations, to get them in the end, yeah, retain them in the sector. And one of the initiatives we have been working on is, I'm really excited about that, is this a cybersecurity program that is designed specifically for women who have no or limited background in IT. And we're currently in the process of wrapping up our second season, and it's absolutely incredible journey seeing the progress of over 200 women who have participated in this program. In the end, the aim of the program was to empower women by providing them the proper foundational cybersecurity skills and hands-on experience. And I'm happy to see that this has not only impact, uh, it has impact on their lives, because you're helping people starting career in a place they never thought about, IT.
Wow, this is incredible, and this is so much needed. So thank you so much for volunteering and being part of.
Yeah, and I think the approach of our program, it's free for all people that are participating, but the setup allows for so many other topics. I'm not into data or AI that much, but if someone else want to basically copy this program with another expertise in another country, it's so easy, and we're really helping people around us to achieve a great career in IT in whatever expertise.
Wow. Actually, I'm not thinking maybe I should. I should talk to you maybe later of how to copy this program and make it accessible for others. And this is in which language? This is in Dutch.
This is in English. We're running the program in the Netherlands for people located in the Netherlands, together with a couple of other women that are in the program, and we're doing this voluntarily together with partners that are helping us to give all those technical sessions. In the end, to make sure it's free for all the participants, instead of they are having to pay a really high fee. We didn't want that. We want them to participate for free, and that worked. So it's in English, but I think it helps when people are there in person, connecting them, so that they have a great starter point with people that are on the same level with this, in this case, expertise, cybersecurity.
Incredible. I'll definitely reach out to you, and I'll share the link also to the website of this organization,
Really
Dutch Women in
appreciate it.
Tech. Wonderful. Anything else, Emily, before we end our incredible conversation today?
No, I've got so many topics to talk about, but I think it's okay for now. And I want to say that if someone has a question after this recording, feel free to reach out via LinkedIn or email or whatever. I'm
For
always
sure.
happy to help you.
For sure. I will share your LinkedIn and your website, so you can reach out to Emily if you want to continue the conversation. And thank you so much, Emily, for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode with Emily. Before you go, I want to share with you next week's episode, and next week I'm speaking with Brittany Greenfield, and we're going to have a fascinating conversation. Brittany is a cybersecurity expert and the founder of Wabi. And her journey is anything but ordinary. She shares how she found her passion for cybersecurity despite starting out as a comp sci dropout, and how she's bridging the gap between development and security with her groundbreaking work. And that's not all. Brittany also gives powerful advice for women looking to enter tech, proving you don't need to write code to be a technical leader. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast or share this episode with a friend who needs to hear it. And while you're at it, head over to my website and sign up to the newsletter. It's limorbergman.com/newsletter to stay updated on all things Women from a Woman to a Leader podcast. But not only, I share weekly tips. So trust me, you don't want to miss this inspiring episode, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day.